Thank you, Usman. And thanks for everybody to come. And today's seminar topic is strategies and priority for Africa agriculture. When you walk in to the hallway before you grab your lunch, you saw the books on the table with the same title. So no, actually we have this seminar title is not just because our book has this title, because this is very important policy issue even today. So before I start, I'd like to thank the team for this book. We have more than 20 IFPRI researchers and their Africa collaborators, and they contribute to this book. It's a huge effort. I think we have been doing this for almost 5 years now. Of course, also after that, we have another painful 2 years for peer review, revision, and publication. So finally, we saw the book on the table today. To start with my 10 minutes, and I want to bring us back to early 2000s, why we want to have this research. So we know in early 2000, there was big debate among in the development area. And I don't need to mention names, but we know there are quite strong opinions to see the more perspective side of Africa agriculture. Many people think about maybe Africa should find another way to grow instead of agriculture. So IFPRI actually was in the center of the debate. IFPRI just created a new division we call Development Strategy and Governance Division, led by Peter Heisel. Everybody knows he's a strong agriculture development economist. So for such a debate, actually, we cannot just have our emotion. We are agriculture economy. We want to make sure agriculture is in the center of development agenda. We also want to have economic evidence. Also, we are talking not among ourselves. We are talking with broad development partners. So many of them, they are maybe more focus on urban economy, focus on other opportunities. That's why we also need to have an approach which can bring all kind of aspects of the economy. So we call economy-wide approach. So this is the first important background for our research motivation. The second point Usman already mentioned is CAADP. Actually, Africa governments, Africa countries have participated in this debate by action. So in 2003, CAADP started. So CAADP is a pro-agriculture growth program with a clear agenda and clear targets. Two important targets we remember by heart: 6% agriculture growth, 10% public resource allocation. So to set up target is one thing. To understand how can this target work and how can this target contribute to broad development agenda is different issues. In this process, IFPRI also has institutional commitment to CAADP through the agreement with CAADP. Actually, that's the reason we got Usman to come to play the leadership role at this agreement. So as a research organization, our contribution to CAADP process has to be research-based. So how to strengthen the analytic support to CAADP process, also how to emphasize the role of research in the formation of agriculture development strategy at the country level, become agenda of part of IFPRI research. So now, almost 10 years passed, so things start to change. Today, I think few people even question the role of agriculture after 2007, 2008 world food price crisis. We also see the encouraged consensus between donors and Africa leaders. The recent commitment is G8 and Africa leaders' new alliance for food security and nutrition. Among Africa countries, few Africa countries also start to develop another initiative called Grow Africa, with particular focus on empowering smallholder agriculture. Also, CADAP has made progress. So if we log into RESAC's website, we can see the public resource allocation start to increase among many Africa countries. 8 countries have already reached 10% target. And also, we saw encouraged growth picture in Africa, not only agriculture, the whole economy. People start to call last decade is growth decade for Africa. So Africa agriculture, first time to have such sustainable growth more than its population growth. So now we go back to early 2000s. So when we have our background in our mind, motivated our research, actually more important is huge demand from Africa countries when they prepare their CADAP process. These 5 questions constantly come to us asked by Jeff Hill, by many donor development partners, and by country actually governments. So the first question is, okay, agriculture is important, but what's agriculture's potential contribution to the whole development? And then agriculture is a comprehensive term. So when the government start to plan their strategy, what's the priority among different agricultures? CADAP has set up 6% target, whether this is enough for achieve poverty reduction, MDG, Millennium Development Goals. Also, to support agriculture growth, we ask more resources. How much is enough? So what kind of resource allocation actually can support the needs of agricultural growth? When resource is limited, what's the priority? So against this group of important policy issues, also our research issues, we also face another challenge. So we do not have lecture of time. CADAP is in the process. We have to fighting against the time to have evidence-based research. That's why, so when we start, I should say we didn't develop typology. Actually, country constantly come to us to ask support. However, when we start to prepare this book, we have to sit down to look at all of these countries, whether we can generalize anything from country-specific case studies. So at the book, when you glance quickly, you'll see we have 10 key chapters by country name. Even we couldn't come out another name. We just think about this is a country case study. All of these countries are listed here in about letters. So end up, actually, all of these 10 countries are among the low-income Africa countries. In their economy, either agriculture is still one of the biggest sector, or agriculture play important role in the economy. More important things in all of these countries, poverty is still a predominant rural phenomenon. Countries have different agroecology conditions. Some of them coast, some of them landlocked, some of them they have other growth opportunities such as mineral resources. For that reason, we need to have the economy-wide approach, not just have agriculture in the analysis, but also other sectors. For the mineral-rich countries, we have a mineral sector explicitly defined in the analysis. So when we have our concept nodes development, we need to have a clear idea what kind of methodology we are going to use for the analysis. First of all, we have to do country case study. We cannot do cross-country analysis to use simple cross-answer information to answer the question from specific countries. That's why all of the studies is country by country. Based on country-specific data, develop the model specific for the country. In terms of methodology, we use economy-wide approach. Actually, is more in a general equilibrium setting. So we develop the model for individual country, and then to use this model to do simulation analysis. means we ask questions if growth happen in such a sector, what will happen for the overall economic growth, for the overall poverty reduction. So I summarize our key findings into 4 slices. It's difficult to summarize the whole book in 4 slices, but there are many actually important messages at the subnational level, at the individual household level. Here, I just highlight what we have found. The first most important message is the relationship between agriculture growth and poverty reduction. Even though in our heart we believe agriculture growth is very important for poverty reduction, but how important? So I think this is the first time for us to provide such a measurement. So to measure it, we have to have a counterfactual. We can argue maybe non-agriculture is same important as agriculture. That's why in our analysis, we have to consider different type of growth. To make them comparable, we have to come out to the similar growth outcome, which we use GDP growth to be the measurement. So this chart basically tells us with a 1% of increase in total GDP growth rate, not just agriculture, what will happen at the poverty rate. So the red bar represents the scenario in which the GDP growth actually is led by more agriculture growth. So when agriculture growth start to stimulate it, agriculture directly contribute to GDP growth, also indirect contribute through the linkage effect, which I will present later. So first things we see consistently among the country I present here, the red bar is longer. Longer means with 1% of GDP growth rate, the poverty reduction will be faster. Think about Ethiopia at the bottom of the chart. The red line tells us it's pretty much stop at the negative 1.45. Means with 1% of GDP growth led by agriculture growth, poverty rate will fall by 1.45%. On another side, if similar growth actually were led by non-agriculture, the poverty rate only fell by about 1%. So for some countries, we didn't have the non-agriculture growth scenario. However, we compare with our baseline growth scenario. So baseline, basically, we just simply model the country follow their business as usual situation along their growth trend and what will happen for their poverty result. So we can see consistently the red bar is longer than the baseline bars. So means if we push agriculture growth a little bit more, they will have better poverty reduction outcome than what they have happened along their current growth trend. So I mentioned at the beginning, agriculture is a broader term. So when each country start to plan their strategy, they have to have a second level question, is what kind of agriculture? So for that purpose, we have done not just agriculture, but also key agriculture sectors, which are all explicitly defined in each country's model. So this slide basically tells us, compare between stable agriculture and export-oriented agriculture. Stable agriculture actually has a stronger growth linkage. Growth linkage means when the sector grows, what will happen for other sectors, as well as for the whole economy. So the multiplier is a term. If you have 1 unit of increase in a sector, for example, here we can say the leading sector, for example, cereals. 1 unit can be $1 million in constant term. What happened for the whole economy? Of course, this 1 unit will automatically become the whole economy's 1 unit. In addition to this 1 unit, we see another 0.13 unit increase in the case of Ethiopia. So means additional 1.3 unit growth actually come from somewhere. It's not from the sector we directly support. Here, for example, cereal sector. On another side, we see export sector in general actually has less growth linkage. So in the general equilibrium theory, basically we call leakage effect, because you export your stuff, you didn't have a strong link with your upstream, downstream sector within your economy, end up is benefit from foreign exchange point of view, but may not benefit the economic growth as what a stable sector can do. Moreover, we also look at the similar issue between growth and poverty at this level, at the much disaggregated agriculture level. Again, we found stable sectors growth is more proper compared with export-led growth in most of countries. And of course, for some countries, export sector have a similar contribution to poverty reduction, like in Kenya and Mozambique. But in general, actually, the stable food sector's growth is more proper. So now we turn to the question about public investment. So here, basically, we use only one country as example. The reason is the public investment data actually is much difficult to compare across countries. We know actually each country has different kind of budget sheet, also public investment in sector and in agriculture, in different sector. Actually, even now, for many countries, the data are not available. So that's why we try very hard to use different methodology to do the analysis. This actually make our comparison a little bit difficult. For that purpose, I only present one country, which is Rwanda in this case. So the table basically tells us we can think about as benefit cost ratio, but in a general equilibrium setting. So the benefit here actually is measured as the increase in agriculture or increase in GDP over time. Of course, we have to discount to the current value. What's the cost? Cost is public investment. We basically use 10 years investment plan data, and of course, consider as a constant price, also consider the recurrent spending over time. So let's look at the bottom row for agriculture in total. We say, like, if in the case of Rwanda, if we invest $1 million into agriculture, the overall effect on GDP is 3 million. So it's not just 1 year snapshot, it's over time. The gain will be more than 3 million. Among these 3.2 million, actually 3.1 million from agriculture itself. And then there's another additional 0.1 million is split over to non-agriculture sector. Also, we look at into broader subsector like green sector, root tube sector, and other staples. Even within each subsector, we look at specific commodity as an individual sector. So we see the some numbers are very high, means this sector can have a higher return. Some number is relatively low, especially the number for export crop. Kind of disappointed for the country because they like to use cocoa, coffee, and tea as their growth power for the whole growth. But the point, what we try to emphasize, actually the sector can grow very rapidly, but the sector may not have a high return to its investment. And so I don't think I should talk about too much. I have to leave time to another two gentlemen and lady used to be our donors. So here we, by the way, actually gave us a strong support in our research. So what's the lessons we learned from this research in terms of agricultural development strategy? I think the first lesson or first point we try to emphasize is broad growth is crucial. Constantly we heard encouraging story about cut flower, about mango, about pineapple, their growth rate 20%, 30% somewhere. But actually, if we look at the economy-wide impact, we can see we need to have broad broad-based growth. So broad-based growth actually make sure the majority of smallholder can participate in the growth. So narrowly defined single sector's growth might be important for that sector for a certain group of rural household and farmers, but hardly to have this broad economic growth impact. And the second point we try to emphasize is the composition of agriculture growth. So agriculture's proper result actually come not from the broad agriculture only, also come from certain agriculture sector. So in this way, the poverty impact has to be a part of agriculture agenda when we develop agriculture strategy, how to prioritize agriculture growth. Also, the role of agriculture can go beyond agriculture because the strong linkage effect. However, at the sub-sector level, such linkage effect can be different. So in setting the priority, we need to also consider such a linkage effect. And also, I mentioned before, so targeting investment in a relatively larger agriculture sector actually is quite important, both for using agriculture as engine of growth and also for poverty reduction. Of course, we cannot just think about agriculture on its supply side. Market opportunity has to be considered in setting up the priority. So the research, the book has to be published, but the research still continue because CAADP is still in the process. Africa still hasn't yet achieved the green revolution like what happened in Asia. So in the process, we start to realize actually, even though this is the first time to integrate investment analysis into economic-wide framework, we are facing a big challenge in terms of actually investment data. So we actually glad most of the countries in Africa start to realize this issue. So through our research and SAC efforts led by Usman, actually we can say the data situation has been improved. So that will actually help research a lot. Also, most of public investment analysis actually talk about total impact. So we know for countries, they need to know the impact pathway. So they need to know not only what, but also how and why. So that will be another important research topic for us. Also, we cannot just look at individual investment standalone, and up actually they may not create a synergy effect, especially investment cross donors, community, investment among line ministry, how they actually come together and created a synergy through joint efforts. Also now situations start to move on, so agricultural role in poverty seems to be a consensus, but the role of agriculture to nutrition become increasingly a challenge research topic. So far, even though we have initiated this research, but very little evidence actually we can see from research literature. So therefore, a lot of efforts actually now have been put into this area. Of course, agriculture is high risk economic activities. We do not expect agriculture can solve everything, so incorporate risk and social protection in the analysis is important. With increased investment in agriculture, the monitor evaluation, its outcome, its process has increasingly become important. So IFPRI, as a part of consulting, is in the process to think about to develop agriculture transformation index. I will stop here. Thank you again.